Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Amit Harari, and coming up in today's newscast, amidst rising clashes and terror attacks, the IDF kills 3 and apprehends over a dozen terror suspects in Judea and Samaria overnight. Meanwhile, a group of extremist neo-Nazi ideologues, including a former German lawmaker, attempt a coup in Berlin. And finally, a magical sling-bullet from the 2nd century BCE discovered in the central Israeli city of Yavne. A series of terror attacks, deadly clashes with Israeli security forces, and arrests continue overnight throughout Judea and Samaria. ILTV's Aaron Porras reporting.
Under intense and accurate enemy fire, Israeli defense troops responding to a number of Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists in Jenin early morning Thursday. Islamic Jihad taking credit for the attack, including gunfire and throwing explosives at the troops, but the IDF instead killing 3 of the militants and seizing a number of automatic rifles. The IDF entering Jenin overnight to arrest 3 wanted terror suspects. Then elsewhere in Judea and Samaria, Israeli forces arresting 12 other wanted Palestinians, all 15 of whom transferred to the Shin Bet for questioning. No soldiers reported injured. Meanwhile, this coming after a sharp spike in attacks over the past few days. 2 shooting attacks just on Wednesday, for example. In Ofra on Wednesday afternoon, for one, a Palestinian gunman opening fire on a military outpost from a passing car. After giving chase, however, Israeli forces catching up with the suspect, who then exited the vehicle and opened fire again. IDF responding, neutralizing the terrorist, later identified as a former Palestinian prisoner in Israel, thought to be connected to a number of attacks in recent weeks. Then earlier in the day, Palestinians shooting at another military post near the village of Nabi Saleh. These seemingly more frequent attacks coinciding with Israel's Operation Breaking the Wave, which itself was sparked by a deadly series of terror attacks that has left 31 Israelis dead since the start of 2022. The operation thus far resulting in some 2,500 arrests and roughly 150 Palestinians dead, mostly while carrying out attacks on Israeli soldiers.
Turning to politics, where Prime Minister-designate Benjamin Netanyahu Likud has now completed its coalition agreements with its partners, clearing the way for his government to be formed, hopefully in the coming days. ILTV's Steve Leibovich reports.
Likud has now reached an agreement with each of its coalition partners, paving the way for Prime Minister Netanyahu to form a government in the coming days. Negotiators from Likud and Shas finalized their agreement overnight, completing the list of such deals with his partners in the 64-member coalition. Cabinet posts have now been assigned to Likud's 5 partner parties. Netanyahu now has the tough task of assigning the remaining ministries to members of his own Likud party. Even before the coalition deal is finalized, Likud and its partners are planning a legislative blitz in the next few days to pass a series of bills to clear the way for an agreement. The first order of business is to replace Knesset Speaker Miki Levy from Yesh Atid with someone from Likud. On the agenda, a law that would enable Shas party leader Aryeh Deri to serve as a minister despite his recent conviction on tax charges. Another bill allows religious Zionism leader Bezalel Smotrich to be given sweeping powers in Judea and Samaria. Still more legislation will move key powers from the police to the newly rebranded National Security Ministry to fulfill promises to incoming minister Itamar Ben-Gvir from the right-wing Otzma Yehudit party. Netanyahu has until Sunday to form his government within the allotted 28-day period. If he's not ready, Netanyahu is expected to request, and President Herzog is expected to grant, an extension of up to 2 weeks.
The Holder government approach to anti-Semitism now outlined a bit better as Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff hosted a roundtable discussion at the White House. The Jewish husband of Vice President Kamala Harris pulled no punches in condemning the hateful trend. ILTV's Steve Leibovich reports.
Leaders of dozens of Jewish organizations attended the gathering, representing a wide cross-section of the American Jewish community. The Jewish leaders support a whole-of-government approach to combat anti-Semitism, as recommended this week by a bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers. Emhoff said the problem is urgent.
There's an epidemic of hate facing our country. We're seeing a rapid rise in anti-Semitic rhetoric and acts. Let me be clear. Words matter. People are no longer saying the quiet parts out loud. They are literally screaming them.
The gathering in the White House highlighted the urgency in countering what U.S. Second Gentleman Emhoff called an epidemic of hate. Emhoff made it personal.
It's who we are as a people. It's our identity. It's my identity. And I'm in pain right now. We're all in pain right now. Anti-Semitism is dangerous. We cannot normalize this. We all have an obligation to condemn these vile acts. We must all of us cannot stay silent.
Emhoff vowed to continue to use his voice.
But let me tell you, I understand the weight of this responsibility. I do. And as second gentleman, let me reiterate, I will not remain silent. And I'm proud to be Jewish. I'm proud to live openly as a Jew. And I'm not afraid. We cannot live in fear. We refuse to be afraid.
The second gentleman said American Jews must stand proud and not be afraid.
We're staying in the field of anti-Semitism, a topic widely covered in our newscast. And today with us in studio is pro-Israeli speaker and influencer Hanania Naftali. Hi, Hanania. Thank you so much for making time
Thanks
for us.
for having me.
So, Hanania, it's safe to say that anti-Semitism is rising immensely all over the world, but I'd like to spotlight more the US, the United States. Why in such a volume? Why now? And where do you see this going?
Look, I have to say that, first of all, it's a very worrying trend. And we have all heard Kanye West's recent remarks that he loves Hitler and he claims to love the Jews, but also love Nazis. Look, I think people have been saying that he's suffering from mental illness, but I don't know a mental illness that you just wake up in the morning and you say, I hate the Jews, DEFCON on the Jews. This is just unacceptable. And I do want to stress the fact that anti-Semitism is not a Jewish problem. It's a humanity problem because right now they are targeting the Jews, but they're not going to stop there. They're going to continue and they're going to target other minorities. So the fact that they're targeting the Jews right now, this should be an alarm for people around the world because Jews may be a minority right now that is being targeted, a target of hate crimes, but it's not going to stop there. And I also have to say that, you know, the FBI recently released a report regarding 2021 that 60% of the hate crimes targeted Jews. Now, I do want to point out that Jews are 0.2% of the entire world's population, and if I'm not wrong, around 2-point-something% of the US population. So just to give you a picture of how outrageous it is that 60% of the hate crimes, they target Jews, but Jews are only this small of a percentage of their population.
Also, but it's always been around, but it feels like in recent months, it's been the rise has been much bigger. I mean, it's insane. How can you explain that? I mean, why now? What's happening right now? Is there anything specific?
I think that this is a question that we are all asking ourselves because, look, anti-Semitism have been around for centuries. So it's I call it an ancient disease because it's been here, this jealousy of Jews. You know, we saw Kanye West saying that, you know, he put up this graphic with showing the Jewish executives in Hollywood and this film industries, and you know, out of hate. But we do need to remember the fact that these Jews that he speaks against, they're American citizens. So why all of a sudden they're Jews and not Americans? Because they're Americans that pay taxes, they contribute to the American society. So I do have to say that this is a question that we are asking ourselves, but anti-Semitism has been there for centuries, and it's a disease that we must fight with everything that we have, because I think that the word anti-Semitism takes the we should call it Jew hatred, because this is exactly what it is.
Yes, and Hanania, I'd like to ask you that many believe that we can't just cancel or otherwise punish people with anti-Semitic views, and you yourself have been an Israeli activist for a very long time. What are authorities and Jewish community members doing right now in the field to battle anti-Semitism, to do something about it? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can be done? That's
a great question. I can tell you from my point of view, I was born and raised in Israel, and I grew up to love my Jewish culture and traditions. And I think that the way we need to combat anti-Semitism is to simply tell our story, from our personal perspective. Because it feels like, to me as a Jew, it feels like these anti-Semites or people that oppose the Jews, they treat us like we're rats, like we're a problem. But we're just normal human beings that we have our faith. We go to the synagogue. Our synagogues should not have these heavy security. I was actually shocked when I visited Europe for the first time. I visited Germany, and I wanted to enter a synagogue, and I had to go through an airport level security just to pray. And I think that this is a question that we all should ask ourselves. Why don't we see security in other places of worship? Why are the Jews targeted for having their personal faith? We do not need to conceal our identity. This is a huge problem.
Do you think we're enough? I mean, when there's like a war, an operation here in Israel, we see big influencers like Bella Hadid, like Gigi Hadid, people you don't even want to mention their names in a studio like this. But you see one post they're posting is becoming so viral. And here in Israel, it seems like influencers, and there are not enough people like you, that's for sure, that want to put their voice out and speak for the Jewish people and for Israel especially. What can be done in the way of, should we put more budgets in it? I mean, what can be done, official-wise?
First of all, by all means, but I would say that unity. We need to be united. Our enemies are all over us, trying to devour us, and we need to be united. We have too much division, and we're so divided, and we cannot, they say that the second temple was destroyed because we were not united. There was inner hate. But moreover, I have to say that it is not present anti-Semitism that should intimidate us, but rather what the future will be if we don't combat anti-Semitism today. So by all means, I think that we need to tell our stories from the personal perspective. We're just normal human beings. We need to be united. We have one enemy. We have to be united and focused on that. And definitely the government should fund this campaign against hatred.
I totally agree. Hanan and Naftali, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Incredible news coming from Germany, with about 50 men and women being part of a group planning to overthrow the Republic of Germany and replace it with a new state called the Second Reich. And how is the Kremlin involved? Let's see. German authorities on Wednesday detaining 25 members and supporters of a far-right group that the prosecutor's office saying was preparing a violent overthrow of the state to install as national leader a prince who had sought support from Russia. The far-right activists getting arrested in an extensive operation conducted in 11 states across Germany. Among the detainees are former military personnel, a German prince, and even former police members.
Die heute aufgedeckten mutmaßlichen terroristische Vereinigung ist nach dem Stand der Ermittlungen von gemeinsamen Umsturzfantasien und Verschwörungsideologien gegründet. Erst die weiteren Ermittlungen werden ein klares Bild ergeben, wie weit die Umsturzpläne tatsächlich gediehen waren. Militante Reichsbürger verbindet der Hass auf die Demokratie, auf unseren Staat und auf Menschen, die für unser Gemeinwesen eintreten.
The group saying to have prepared for a day X to storm the Reichstag parliament building and seize power. And at the center of the plot, a 71-year-old German man known as Prince Heinrich XIII, with a federal prosecution classifying him as one of the network's leaders being arrested. Heinrich, a member of a German aristocratic family and a former paratrooper in the military, planning to serve as the new leader of Germany after making contact with Russian officials who sought to establish a new order in the Republic. This with the Russian embassy in Berlin denying all allegations, with the Kremlin saying there's no doubt about the lack of involvement of Russian citizens in the plot. Germany's Interior Minister Nancy Faeser saying that the federal government will respond with full force against the organization's members, adding she will submit a bill allowing easy dismissal of public servants going against the constitution. The German prosecution adding that the terrorist organization already purchased equipment while constantly recruiting new members, conducting shooting lessons, and therefore focus her efforts on military and police personnel. Definitely to be continued. And now joining us from Germany is Israeli journalist and Israel Hayom envoy to Europe, who also knows the story in Germany from inside out, Eldad Beck. Hi, Eldad. Thank you for joining us.
Hi there. Thank you very much for having me.
So Eldad, it's an incredible story. Please break it down for us. I mean, who is this Reichsbürger group?
It's a movement of extreme right-wing activists who actually started their activities in the 80s and became very present on the public scene in the last 10 years. Very specifically in the last 5 years, having committed several violent attacks against policemen all over Germany. According to the German security services, the Reichsbürger, the citizens of the Reich, are counting something like 20,000 activists all over Germany. Out of them, something like 1,100 known to be radical right-wing activists. It's a group of persons who combine in their ideology a very strong nostalgia to the, as you mentioned, the Second Reich, which was the German empire built on 1871, and actually the empire who was at the roots of the First World War. They want to bring back an authoritarian regime, very probably a monarchic authoritarian regime that would replace the democracy, which they do not believe in, which they think was forced upon the Germans by the Allies after winning the Second World War. And they also want to return back to the borders of the Second German Reich, which means that they want to annex again territories that are right now under the sovereignty of Poland and Czechia.
Eldad, and excuse me for interrupting, but we're in 2022, an attempted Nazi coup to overthrow the German government. That seems so far-fetched. How serious was it?
I would not go as far as to call them Nazis, despite the fact that many of them are anti-Semitic and would like to see a return of a stronger Germany. However, you must understand that we are facing in Germany a weakening of the public trust in the democratic system that has been shown in recent years in a very significant way. And therefore, people are looking for replacement for the democracy that has failed. I wouldn't say that it's a vast phenomenon within the German population, but it is definitely a phenomenon that is getting stronger. The fact that one of the leaders of the coup is a member, was a representative of a German right-wing party in the Bundestag, and herself being a judge, shows you that we're not dealing with people who are coming from very low levels of the German society, but quite on the contrary. And this has also can also be seen in the fact that a large quantity of those who were arrested yesterday had a military past and military capacities. One of them is an active soldier in a commando elite unit of the German army.
And it's fair to assume that this group probably wouldn't have attempted their coup unless they thought they would have public support in event of success. How strong is the neo-Nazi, the QN, and far-right underground in Germany today? I mean, how widespread are their ideologies there?
I tend to believe that the importance of this event, of this group, is largely exaggerated by the German authorities and by the German press. But it shows that the German authorities are very much afraid that more and more people would turn their back to the democratic system in Germany and would look for other options. We have been witnessing in the last 10 years for more and more public manifestations of unhappiness with the current democratic system that was expressed in massive demonstrations. I recall to memory the phenomenon of Pegida that started in a very small group, and in a matter of weeks, tens of thousands of people participated all over Germany in demonstrations of this group resenting the transformation of Germany into an immigration society and into as they believed, a society under the influence of Islam. We have also seen the amazing rise of the party Alternative for Germany that was founded in 2013 and in 2017 has become the third biggest party in the German Bundestag. According to recent polls, it is enjoying today the greatest popularity it has ever had in its history, meaning something like 15 or 16% of the total vote here in Germany. So there is a sort of a sentiment of panic among the German authorities when they see that such ideas spread very quickly among the population, and taking into account the history of Germany, there is definitely a reason to be alarmed.
Definitely, that big. The story is sure to be continued. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
A 2,200-year-old bullet, an ancient magical inscription, and evidence of a long-fought battle. The ancient city of Yavne exposing its secret to the public free of charge with help from the Israel Antiquities Authority and the Yavne Hall of Culture. Aaron Porras with the details.
One can only imagine what the warrior thought and felt as he held on to the hopes of divine salvation. A magic-imbibed lead sling bullet from 2,200 years ago, now on display, discovered by Israeli Antiquities Authority archaeologists at the Yavne excavation site. Researchers saying that the bullet, exposing tangible evidence of a fierce battle that took place at Yavne at the time, believed to be one of many recorded battles between the Hasmoneans and the Seleucid Greeks. Inscribed on the bullet's face, an inscription reading, "Victory of Heracles and Horanus." Heracles and Horan were considered the divine patrons of Yavne, and this is the first archaeological evidence of the two guardians discovered inside Yavne itself. Of course, the inscription not just a call on the city's deities, but a message to unify the troops and raise spirits. It was also a way of scaring the enemy. Israeli researchers saying that these types of inscriptions served as a kind of psychological warfare intended to rally the forces and terrorize the opposition. The Yavne site, meantime, known as a mega excavation, one of the largest digs ever conducted by the IAA, and the site of, quote, a rich and varied history spanning some 7,000 years.
Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. A mix of clear and partly cloudy skies expected around the country tonight, with lows in the evening averaging a chilly 10 degrees Celsius or 50 Fahrenheit. And then tomorrow, more of the same weather alongside top temperatures of 22 degrees Celsius or 72 Fahrenheit. And finally, on Saturday, we can expect some clear skies with temperatures remaining steadily in the mid-20s. Now, that's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channels on YouTube, Facebook, and Telegram, and subscribe to our ILTV newsletter. I'm Amidst, wishing you a great weekend, and thank you so much for watching.